Earlier today, Apple unveiled its first product since Steve Jobs resigned as chief executive of the company. This is the new iPhone 4S. It is said to be 7 times faster than the old iPhone 4. And it also, well, it's supposed to have a new improved antenna, faster download speeds. It also combines GSM and CDMA, which means you can use it all over the world. Well, how does Apple do it with these products? Joining us now for more is Claudine Cheever, Vice President, Chief Strategy Officer at the advertising giant Saatchi. And Saatchi, Adam Lavelle of iCrossing, a digital marketing agency whose clients have included Coca-Cola, Lego, and LG Electronics, and David Placek, whose firm Lexicon Branding helps companies coin such new product names such as the BlackBerry, Dasani Water, and the Pentium chip, to name just a few. Great to have you all with us. Claudine, I want to begin with you. Apple's introduction of the new 4S. Is this an underwhelming experience, or does Apple just keep doing this because, you know, they get a lot of free publicity even when they come out, it seems, with a pincushion?
Yeah, well, I think it definitely, everyone was expecting a bigger change, and the 4S feels a bit like a mid-cycle enhancement. But one of the things I think they do really well is create incredible momentum around these news announcements. I mean, marketers abuse news to consumers, every little thing they want to talk about, but Apple does a great job of creating these tent poles, and there was so much speculation that the 4S probably is warranting more excitement than maybe it really even deserves in terms of technology advancements. It's a very typical technology upgrade. It's lots of little stuff all bundled together, but yet somehow they do it very simply and elegantly, and it feels exciting.
Adam, how do they do this? Is it because they're so secretive, because they seem to have a following not only outside the company, but inside the company? It's almost as if they have an army of acolytes that are there to make sure that they speak only with one message.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about them as being a bit cult-like, barring a few individual people who will leave their phones accidentally at bars that might get scooped up for different scoops by different blogs. They do an amazing job of keeping things very tight-lipped. It's one of the reasons there were several blogs saying that this probably wasn't going to be a 5 because there wasn't any leak in the process over the last couple months that really let the cat out of the bag on this one. So I don't think for some people it was much of a surprise.
David, you didn't come up with the name iPhone 4S, I would imagine.
I did not. Yeah.
Now, tell us about Lexicon for those that may not be familiar with your company.
Well, we're a company that is very specialized. We focus really on the brand name, helping our clients tell that initial story, get that attention, generate interest, and hopefully tell consumers something new.
Now, one of the products that you did name was the PowerBook.
Yes.
How did you come up with that name for Apple?
Well, if you think back a few years ago, portable computers weren't really that portable. There was a mixture of labels, notebook computers, laptops, but most of them were quite heavy. And characteristic of Apple, along the way, they were able to develop a product that really was significantly better, lighter, and we wanted to help them establish a new benchmark in the marketplace. And so we created not just a notebook, but a PowerBook.
But why the word power, for example?
Because that's what you get in a portable computer that is truly portable. You really are able to carry your power with you. And although those are two simple words, combining them created a new and novel idea, a new story for them to tell.
Claudine, does the 4S qualify on that level of a new introduction for Apple? I mean, it hardly sounds that innovative.
Well, 4S sounds like more of a technology name, and I find them more and more communicating like a traditional technology company. If you look at the way the iPhone advertising has been recently, it's been very competitive, which is kind of new for them to
And they're
even
dropping the price of some of their older and existing products.
If you don't have an iPhone, you can't do this, and you can almost hear them trying to have a conversation with Android and with RIM. So I think it is really interesting that they still maintain their Apple iconic status, but I think when it works for them, they fall into more traditional modes of technology marketing, and I see that happening more and more.
Claudine, you mentioned the idea that Apple seems to be going more for a technology market, making sure that its features are, if not up to date, are better than everyone else. How do the competitors then have to respond?
Well, I think you can get in a tit for tat, which is always very dangerous. And I think one of the things that Apple's actually been very good at is just having a point of view and standing for what they are and what they believe in. And I think it's really dangerous to get in any kind of tit for tat. And they kind of did that in a fun way with Mac versus PC, but they created it, they invited it, and it was still their frame of reference. So I think it's very dangerous to get into that kind of comparative. It's so tempting because you think that rationally people shop side by side. When people decide to buy something, it's an emotional decision. So I think that's kind of a dangerous path to to go
I'm glad
down.
you used the word emotional, because, David, I want to bring you in about the idea of naming and using emotion in order to connect consumers with specific products or brands. When you look at what Apple's success has been like in the retail environment, have they been able to take that emotion and then apply it to even newer products?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's not necessarily in their names. It's how they behave in the marketplace and how people using their devices behave. You see this in the language of Steve Jobs, where he talks about things that are awesome, insanely great. You know, the next generation of these things, and that, I think, filters out into the marketplace. And then you see people, particularly using the iPad, and the wows that you hear when they experience it for the first time. So I think it's probably the #1 emotional brand in the world today.
Adam, come in on the topic of emotional brands, and I want to bring in the iPad, but also the recent introduction by Amazon.com, its Kindle, the Fire. Is that just going to be a price point competition, or is it going to be able to grab the emotion of the consumer?
I think it's definitely going to resonate with a particular audience. I'm glad you brought them up. I think they're a significant challenger in many ways, but they're not going head-to-head. So as Claudine talked about the tit-for-tat features war, that's not what Amazon is doing. Amazon's actually taken a cue out of the Apple playbook, which is being compulsive and obsessed about a particular audience that they want to go after. And so the e-reader audience that they clearly own, they found a way to tap into that audience and provide some things that that audience will want that scales up. The Fire doesn't have a camera. It doesn't have 3G. So there's a lot of things it doesn't have. It's 7 inches versus the 10-inch iPad. So it's not meant to be a direct competitor, but it clearly is going to go after an audience and try to be
Claudine,
emotional.
what about the advertising from the competitors? Is that going to get any better? Because it doesn't seem as though anybody's been able to even best Apple when it comes to promoting itself using traditional ads, for example.
Well, I think Apple does a great job of having a point of view. I think there are other brands in the category that also have really do a good job of putting out their point of view. I think, obviously, you know, I work with Lenovo, and I think the positioning of, for those who do, is very much not trying to fight with Apple. It's about functionality. It's about getting things done. It's a much more hard-working point of view, and it's having that conversation while Apple's having a conversation over here. So I think that's a brand that has a good position in the category.
All right. I want to thank you very much, Claudine Cheever, Saatchi and Saatchi, Adam Lavelle, iCrossing, David Placek from Lexicon Branding. You can read more about David Placek in the edition of The New Yorker. Great profile.